What's up guys, Kurokun here. Because we're going to be talking about Animal Crossing today, there are a couple of teeny tiny disclaimers I do have to get out of the way before we can get to the actual review. Firstly, because of the way Animal Crossing works, there are some things that I may complain about being missing, or might complain about certain things working one way, but in a few months from now I'll probably figure out that you can either unlock a way to do it differently, or something will change to actually change something I say in this review. I've had the game for about 2 weeks now, and every day it feels like I unlock something new that I didn't have previously that fixes some kind of small nitpick or gripe that I used to have, so there's just no way of knowing if all the stuff I talk about here will at some point come down the line. So if you're watching this a few months from now, or if you're a time traveler who's gone through and seen that something I say is invalidated by something that happens later in the game, please forgive me, I just don't know about it. Secondly, I enjoy this game a lot. I'm playing it a couple of hours every single day. I'll probably play it every single day for the next 4 or 5 months. So if I do say anything negative about the game, please just keep that in mind. I am not saying that this is a bad game by any means, but I don't think this game is without its criticisms. Animal Crossing New Horizons for the Switch brings us to a new locale. Rather than starting the game out in a town, you start out on a deserted island, and your job, as the island representative, is to build this island up into being a town similar to the ones you would have in the other Animal Crossings. At the beginning of the game, though, there's a lot of creativity in the way that the locale affects the actual game itself. The biggest example being that everybody is in tents rather than being in houses, which I think is a really cool change. Another big change for the series, and what I think is one of the 3 biggest, greatest changes that Animal Crossing has ever had, is you can now put furniture outside. This means that you can make a small patio area for yourself, and when you do eventually grow into a house, you can actually have a decorated yard outside, including a white picket fence, if that's what you're into. Another great new addition to the Animal Crossing formula is now you can collect things from around the island to craft your own equipment and furniture. And on top of just crafting the equipment and furniture, you can also now customize it later in the game, so you can change the color of some of your furniture to match the current furniture that you have a little bit better. These are changes that Animal Crossing has needed for a while, and it's amazing to finally see them hit the series. Hopefully they don't go anywhere for the new Animal Crossing. Another thing I love about the game is Tom Nook seems to almost always have something for you to do. So if you want to go and grind and get your house paid off, that's cool, but if you want to actually do something to improve your island, he almost always has something you can work on to do so. It's a lot of fun, and it brings me back to the days of the GameCube Animal Crossing, where at the beginning of the game you get to work for Tom Nook, and then when it's over, you kinda sorta wish you could keep working for Tom Nook, but you never could. Now it actually does feel like Tom Nook is actually employing you and giving you stuff to do to improve the island. This leads me into what I believe is the best, the absolute greatest innovation that Animal Crossing has ever had as a franchise. There is finally an achievement and questing system. You now get a special currency called Nook Miles for beating certain achievements within the game, that is, collecting a certain amount of bugs or fish, or chopping down a certain amount of trees, or collecting a certain amount of a certain object. It's a really cool system that rewards you for actually exploring the island and seeing what's possible. Daily missions refill infinitely, but the first 5 missions you get a day are worth double the points. So for example, there could be a mission that says, catch 5 fish. And once you catch those 5 fish, you get a certain amount of miles, and then you get another mission to take its place. It's something you can infinitely grind, and the fact that there are 5 per day that you can get double points on gives you an incentive to go and try out new things. It could be talking to new villagers, it could be catching bugs, which you might not normally do, it could be chopping down trees, it could be a whole slew of things. It means you can't just fish for 5 hours a day because it's the most efficient way to get money. You actually have to go and explore what the game has to offer you by doing everything that the game asks you to do. The fact that the missions come back continuously is just ingenious. I love it. It means that if you want to dedicate 2 hours to playing the game, but you don't really have some kind of main mission you want to be working towards, the game always has a list of things that you can be doing in order to earn more Nook Miles, which is pretty much how you're going to be spending most of your time. The Nook Miles give you some pretty great stuff too. Like later on in the game, it'll actually give you the chance to increase your pocket size, it'll give you more hairstyles, hair colors, more recipes. It's a great way to convince people to go and try out new things rather than grinding the same thing over and over again just to get the most bells. You can even use Nook Miles to make your first house payment, rather than making the ridiculous 50,000 Bell payment that he wants you to make. So this new Animal Crossing is pretty much New Leaf, but with the innovations of crafting, achievements, and a new locale. That should pretty much qualify it to be the best Animal Crossing game ever made, right? Well, I think that's what leads us into our first problem. Even though the game's moved locales to an island rather than taking place in like a suburban town, the game fails to add very much that's actually new to the series. One example of this would be the new tools. There's now a vaulting pole that lets you hop across rivers, and a tiny ladder that lets you climb up cliffs. The main problem I have with these tools is they don't really add anything new to the game. They're just quality of life changes to things that we could already do, or were being taken care of by things that were already in the game. Like, the Polting Vault is essentially just a portable bridge. We already had bridges. And the tiny ladder you can use to climb cliffs is just a portable ramp. And again, we've already had ramps. I do love these tools a lot. I do think they make the game a lot easier to play, but they're also not new things. They're just very easy ways of doing old things. I'll give you another example. Let's say you're somebody who likes to pay off your house with fishing. In a normal Animal Crossing game, the loop goes like this. You buy a fishing rod, you fish, and then you sell your fish for bells. In New Horizons, the loop is shake 5 trees to collect 5 tree branches, go back to your house, build a new fishing rod, go out to the sea, fish. After 9 or 10 uses, the fishing rod breaks, go shake 5 more trees, get 5 more branches, go back to your house, build another fishing rod, go back to the sea, use it 9 or 10 more times until it breaks, get the 20 fish that you've collected, sell them, and then go shake 5 more trees and build another fishing rod. Before you guys jump down my throat about the fact that you can buy fishing poles, I want to point out a couple of things here. One, even though you can buy fishing rods, you don't want to be spending money on fishing rods when you can now just collect the tools you need to build a fishing rod for free. It's just not efficient. Also, if you want better fishing rods, you do have to make the first bad fishing rod first. You have to make a flimsy fishing rod, and then you can build it into a more reliable fishing rod, which will still, at some point, inevitably break. The point I'm trying to make here isn't necessarily that the new system is bad. I don't think the new system is bad at all, and I think a lot of people will agree that this is a more fun way of doing it, since you can go out and do different things rather than just doing the one thing like fishing over and over again to pay off your house. The point I'm trying to make isn't necessarily that this is a bad system, it's more that it's just not a new system. Rather than adding some new forms of things you can do to collect bells, you're essentially doing the old things in just a more time-consuming way. It feels like an artificial way to both lengthen the amount of time you spend with the game and also trick you into thinking that you're doing something new. You're not doing something new, you're still fishing just like you were before, you're just now doing it in a different way. Speaking of tricking you into thinking you're doing something new, the way that the actual town building thing works also kind of irks me a little bit. When the game starts, you'll have access to a small part of the island. The rest of it will be blocked off by rivers, and then there will be a third part that's blocked off by the fact that you don't have a ladder yet. While you're on your tiny island, you can build yourself a small tent, and then eventually you'll get the ability to build that into a house. The 2 residents, yes, I did say you start with 2 residents, the 2 residents you're with will build up their houses eventually, and eventually the tents on the island will all be built into some kind of building. Eventually, you'll get a clothing store that moves in, and you'll get the museum moved in, and you're essentially just rebuilding the town from scratch. I can't help but be a little bit disappointed by this, because I was hoping they would take this in some kind of new direction. I actually kind of liked the idea of not having access to all the facilities that we were used to having. Maybe if they had made it so that you could fly to some kind of place that had all these things rather than them being on the island itself, I would have liked it a bit more, but this feels more like they're taking the timeline and moving it back a bit. So you're working up to what you had in the other Animal Crossing games, and then you're continuing on just like a regular Animal Crossing game, rather than it feeling like a new experience. Again, my problem is there's nothing new here. It's just they took away the things that you normally had, and you're working to first get those things back, and then you have a proper starting point. Earlier, I complained about the fact that you only start with 2 villagers, but honestly, the villagers themselves are a little bit more lifeless than they have been in the series thus far. I've been following the villagers around for 2 weeks now, and not one single time have I ever seen the villagers actually turn and talk to each other. Sure, they'll pass each other and look at each other, but they've never actually one time had a conversation with each other. What happened to that feature? Now they just kind of exist. It's like they don't have lives of their own unless the player is interacting with them. I feel like one of the best things about the older Animal Crossings is it felt like you were moving into an already made hustling and bustling city where everybody already had connections with each other and there was already something happening. But in this game, it feels so much more fake because it feels like everything in the game is personalized around you and your actions, and none of the characters actually have any personalities of their own. They don't interact with each other, they only exist to interact with you. Sure, sometimes you'll see them fishing or sniffing flowers or sitting under a tree, and those are cute little additions, but it feels like they only exist as set pieces now rather than actual characters. Talking to them is a bit disappointing as well. You can only talk to each villager about 5 times before they get irritated with talking to you, which is an incredibly small amount. I know that different characters are supposed to have different personalities that allow you to talk to them more, but literally all 5 of the people in my village right now just will not talk to me more than 5 times without getting bummed out and canceling out the talk to them option. And when you do talk to them, they don't really have anything that interesting to say. I know some people will argue that they've never had anything interesting to say, and a lot of people might not even talk to their villagers, but I talk to my villagers. I like answering their weird little questions about my favorite foods or my workout routines and this stuff. And I know sometimes it can get a little bit repetitive, but the fact that it's just not here at all makes me a little bit sad. Some of the conversations are so mediocre that they only last about 2 dialogue boxes, and they're about something completely unrelated to the game. You could talk to a character, and one of their dialogue boxes could be, "I like flowers." Next dialogue box, "I think flowers are great." And then that's the end of the conversation, and that's one of your 5 chances to talk to them before they get irritated. I'm really beginning to miss the era of running errands for people, because errands made it feel like the villagers were doing things outside of talking to you, like in the GameCube days, where some villagers would borrow things from each other, and then your errands would be to return the things that they were borrowing. That made it feel like characters were characters that interacted with each other, and sometimes when you didn't log in, they would maybe be living lives of their own. But here, they don't have lives. They don't have lives unless you're talking to them and interacting with them. Sometimes you'll get the chance to give them an item, and this time feels a little bit random. There might be something that influences it, like maybe at certain times of the day it resets and you can give something new to your villagers, but even this feature doesn't really do much to make them feel more alive. Some characters do seem to have personal likes and dislikes, which does make me a little bit happy, but it just doesn't quite work as a concept. Because for one, since it feels random, you're never prepared for it. You're never ready to run into somebody and give them an item. It just sort of happens. And for 2, it doesn't feel like their likes and dislikes are that consistent. It just feels like the more expensive an item you give them, the more they like it, which isn't very deep at all. So here's my question. How is it that the Animal Crossing game that gives us crafting and customizing furniture somehow leaves out the ability to have villagers request certain furniture or recolored furniture? When I talk to a villager, why can't they ask me to build something? Why can't they say, "Hey, by the way, do you have an acoustic guitar? I've really been wanting an acoustic guitar." Then I could go out, build the acoustic guitar, and then bring it back, and then once that's satisfied, they could give me some kind of item or some bells as a reward. That would be yet another fun thing the game could do to give you more stuff to do every day, while also making the villagers feel a little bit more like people. Another thing that I cannot believe is not a staple in Animal Crossing yet is the lack of any kind of mini-games or things that you can do with the villagers or other players. At the very least, in the GameCube Animal Crossing game, we had NES ROMs that we could play with our friends. If somebody had Balloon Fight in their town and you didn't have Balloon Fight, you could visit their town and then hang out with them and play some Balloon Fight. Going to other players' towns loses its luster really quickly because after they show you their customizations and what they've been doing with their island, there really isn't a reason to stay other than to maybe help them do some chores like chopping down some trees or hitting some rocks for some materials. We are on an island, a tropical paradise. Why is it that there's no surfing minigame that you can do with everybody? Or maybe some kind of small game you can do in the house. Like there's a dartboard in the game. I have one in my house. Why isn't there some kind of dart minigame that I can do with my friends or other villagers? This might be a bit of a nitpick, but how hard would it really be to just put literally one minigame that you can play with other players in the game? This is the most social Animal Crossing game that we've ever gotten. It's on the Switch, which seems like the perfect house for it because you can play it on your TV, and then if you need to go out somewhere, you can just put it in handheld mode and then play it outdoors. You can also bring your Switch over to a friend's house, check out each other's towns. The online play is better than ever, so why on earth is there just nothing to do with other players put into the game? At this point, I'd even be happy with just some kind of collection contest, Have Tom Nook see who can get the most wood within a certain amount of time, or see who can catch the most expensive fish within a certain amount of time. That would at least give you and your friends something fun to do while you're in each other's towns. If I could make one small DLC request, I think it would be something in the form of maybe arcade cabinets that had old 8-bit games that you could play together with your friends, or even maybe some custom games. I know that getting the license for some old arcade games could be kind of difficult, but if they just made their own games that were similar to old arcade games, then that would be a fun thing to do too. That's probably just a pipe dream, but if there were one thing that I could add to the game, it would be that. I'm sorry if this review is coming off so negative, but it feels like most of the excitement that everybody has for New Horizons right now comes from the fact that the Switch is the perfect home for an Animal Crossing game and everybody loves Animal Crossing. The mindset of most players right now seems to be, because I love Animal Crossing, and because the Switch is a great place for Animal Crossing, the new Animal Crossing for the Switch must be great, and I will love it. And while the game is incredibly fun and does have some extremely unique and well-deserved innovations, it's just a game that I see petering out very quickly as well. I don't think a lot of people will be playing this more than 5 or 6 months. At least not regularly. They might hop in once or twice a week to check out their town after their house is built, or they might hop on to see if they can get some fossils for 15 or so minutes, but I just don't see this game having the lasting appeal of a game like New Leaf. It just takes too long to unlock the things that we already had in other Animal Crossing games. When you get the clothing store to your town, for example, it doesn't really feel like something new is being added to the game, it just feels like we're getting back a feature that we had before. If they had found a way to put some kind of new twist on it, it would be a different story, but at the time being, I feel like once everybody gets back to the point where they have a full town with all of their old stores and shops and buildings again, they're going to lose interest in the game rather quickly. I want to stress that I do enjoy this game and I will be playing it regularly for the next few months, but I feel like at some point this is going to become the second City Folk of Animal Crossing, where it felt like we were getting something new and we were really excited about it for 5, 6, 7 months, but then eventually interest in it will peter out, it'll be a bit forgotten, and I think New Leaf will be looked on as the most popular Animal Crossing game a few years from now. So this one should be pretty obvious, but if you have a Switch and you have friends to play with, I absolutely recommend this game for $60. And if you've never checked out an Animal Crossing game before, this is absolutely the perfect time to get into it, and I think $60 is well worth it. Probably won't even notice a lot of the things that I've talked about previously. Now, if you are alone and you just enjoy Animal Crossing casually, I can recommend this game for about $40. Let's not forget that New Leaf was also $40 when it came out, and I feel like, again, personal opinion, New Leaf was slightly better, if not on par with Horizons. So I think it's more than fair to say that this game could be worth $40 to somebody who isn't experiencing the social aspects. And finally, if you've tried out Animal Crossing before and it just really wasn't your thing, I think I'd still recommend this game for about $20 to $25. Now that they've added a lot of stuff to the game, like the achievements and the crafting system, it does feel a little more gamey than the other Animal Crossings did, rather than so much just being a simulation social thing. So I recommend, if you find it for $20 to $25, picking it up and seeing if maybe Animal Crossing has changed enough for you to get into it. Overall, this is probably the most fun wasted opportunity that we've had in a while from Nintendo, and I look forward to enjoying it for the next few months. Since there's always been a little bit of confusion about how I rate my games, we're going to do it in a slightly different way this time. We're going to start at 5 and then see if it meets the criteria for the number above it. So, did I find Animal Crossing New Horizons an enjoyable experience? Yes. Did I find it an above-average experience that most people will enjoy? Yes. Do I think it's a must-play game for fans of the genre? Yes. Do I think it's a standout title that everybody can enjoy regardless of your personal tastes in the genre? No. That leaves Animal Crossing New Horizons a 7 out of 10. If you enjoyed the review, please leave it a like. Those things really do help us out. If you have any thoughts on what you'd like to see me cover next, please leave it in the comment section below. And finally, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudokun news. If you want to prove you made it to the end of the video, please leave me your favorite Animal Crossing villager name in the comments section below. See you next time!